Good afternoon and welcome to our fifth talk of Chemistry Week, and I'd like to introduce you to Rick Cousins, and Rick is an independent scientific consultant. So I'll hand over to you, Rick. If anybody's got any questions throughout the talk, please do use the chat box and we will ask them at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vanessa, and pleasure to be here this afternoon. And I hope my talk can be of some help and assistance to everyone who's listening in and watching the presentation. So the title is Organic Chemistry Enabling Discovery. It will include organic chemistry, but it will also touch on other chemistry that is undertaken in industry. So who am I? 43 years ago, in 1979, I was also a Key Stage 4 student. And I guess like some of you, perhaps in the audience, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to be or what job I wanted to do, or perhaps what I was going to do next. Nonetheless, I completed my O-levels, as they were called then, and I decided to go forward into A-levels, and I selected chemistry, physics and maths as my subjects. Primarily driven by chemistry. I enjoyed it at school. I was relatively good at it, and I thought it could be an exciting subject to follow. And I want to just take you through my journey as I went from a school boy who enjoyed the fun fair and carousels to a young father at university, here with my first daughter. And then eventually I was a senior director of research at GlaxoSmithKline, which is an international pharmaceutical company, one of the largest in the world. So I did my A-levels, and to be honest, my grades weren't great. And so I was able, nonetheless, to go to university, and I went to London University, and I undertook a degree in chemistry with environmental science, as I was interested in the application of chemistry to the environment and to the protection of the environment. During that time, I did a project in my final year, which was to investigate what is the impact of acid rain on aquatic environments. Back in the 1970s and 80s, there was a lot of concern about industrial pollution leading to acidification of rain and how that might impact on the environment and ecosystems, with their evidence of detrimental effect, killing trees and other bad effects of this. However, there wasn't a lot of data as to what was happening. And so I undertook an analytical chemistry project, which looked at how the water content might change after rain in an environment. And we chose a place called 100 Acre Wood, which is why I have a picture of Pooh Bear here with undertaking Pooh Sticks, because 100 Acre Wood was where Christopher Robin and Pooh Bear used to live, if you've ever read the books or seen the film. What did we discover? Well, we took samples of water from the water streams in that wood after heavy precipitation. And we found that metal ions such as aluminium were released into the streams following the heavy rain. Now, such an event could have a harmful effect on plants and animals, and also have an impact on the whole ecosystem. And so we had some data and some evidence of how acidic rain might impact on a local environment. Now, environmental science uses analytical chemistry and is essential for the monitoring of our environments and providing data. So this allows us to evaluate changes more quantitatively and to present arguments why there should be protections, or also to see if legislation has led to improvements in the environment. Having completed the degree, and although my A-levels weren't very good, I nonetheless was able to achieve a first-class honours degree. So I always advise to people, you may not get the grades that you wanted or thought you could achieve at O-level or at A-level, but it's still in your powers to go forward and to make a change and to improve your capabilities and achieve good grades in the future. Now, I chose to do organic geochemistry as a PhD at university. And the puzzle that I was presented was, why does coal contain metals such as chromium? Now, of course, it's quite difficult to analyze this because coal was first formed maybe 300 years ago, 300 million years ago. However, what we decided to do was to use peat bogs as a model of how coal might have originally formed through the accumulation of organic matter in aqueous environments. And we took about to analyze and measure metal content and to identify potential natural metal binders. This led to me not only doing analytical chemistry, but also undertaking synthetic organic chemistry to make synthetic analogues of potential metal binders and to test for their metal binding ability. So it's interesting to think that, things and events that happened maybe millions and millions of years ago, we can investigate them and use chemistry to study and help understand what may have happened on our planet in the past. Now, I decided, having done my PhD, and I enjoyed making organic chemicals and my compounds, and I wanted to do further research in an area. And so I worked in a team that was developing new synthetic methods and new organic chemistry. And one project that we worked on was, we were aware that algal blooms, these blue-green algae that can occur in lakes during the summer, can cause death of wildlife, livestock, and humans. Now, the symptoms can cause that the toxins that are produced can cause convulsions and eventually asphyxiation by respiratory paralysis. One of the toxins identified is a structure shown here in the green, anatoxin A, also known as very fast death factor. It's a natural product that's produced by the cyanobacteria. It was found that this particular compound was an activator of the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor, which is present in muscle and can lead to activation and of course these symptoms and eventual death. What's often the case when we have a natural product identified is we then make it synthetically to confirm the chemical structure, which is what I was involved in and the team undertook. However, this also allows us to make synthetic analogues, so we can see if small changes to the molecule can lead to improvements in activity or loss of activity. And in particular, for something that activates nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, this might have a role to play in diseases with low levels of activity, such as Alzheimer's. So in this research project, I was involved using organic chemistry, analytical chemistry, also biochemistry and pharmacology. So developing my knowledge and also my skills. At that time, I was really stimulated by this idea that you could make small molecules that could modulate biological systems. And so I was really keen to join a pharmaceutical company to get involved in drug discovery. And so in 1989, I joined GSK as a medicinal chemist as part of their anti-infectives group. Now, in the 1980s, there was a big pandemic problem caused by human immunodeficiency virus, and which led to the development of acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS, which was first noted in 1981. However, there were no medicines available at the time that could treat this condition, and new medicines were required. GSK helped to discover a new anti-HIV drug, lamivudine, which was launched in 1995, the chemical structure of which is shown in the top right-hand corner. The challenge, though, was we could make small amounts of this compound in the laboratory, but we needed to make tons of this compound in order to be able to deliver this to the patients globally. And chemistry that I was part of and involved in allowed us to go from a small scale to a commercial scale and able to make carefully and safely ton quantities of this drug, which eventually became a marketed medicine and is still used today as a treatment for HIV. So this project used synthetic chemists, it used analytical chemists, chemical engineers, and pharmaceutical scientists to deliver a solution to a real problem and to provide a medicine of value to patients. Later on in my career, I was part of a respiratory science group at GSK. And some of you may be familiar with this medicine shown in the top left-hand corner called Ventolin, the blue inhaler, which is often used by patients who suffer from asthma. However, the effects of Ventolin are short lasting, maybe up to 5 hours, and so will require potentially additional doses to be taken during the day. We were set the challenge, could we come up with a new version of salbutamol or Ventolin that could last maybe up to 24 hours? And after a lot of work and effort and design and preparation and making new synthetic molecules, we came up with this molecule shown in the middle called vilanterol, which is a long-acting compound which provides relief and bronchodilation for up to a day after a single dose and is now a marketed drug. This project used chemists in many different ways: synthetic chemists, medicinal chemists, analytical chemists, computational chemists, process chemists, and manufacturing chemists. So there's lots of different ways in which chemistry impacted on the success of this project. I'll also say a huge array of other different scientific roles are involved in the discovery of a new medicine. After that, I got involved in a group that took a wholly different strategy to finding new medicines. So we decided that we would like to go fishing in other ponds. So GSK had 12,000 people working on research and had lots of activities and science internally at GSK. However, we couldn't do everything, and there was no doubt other good science and other good ideas elsewhere in the world. And I was part of this new group whose role was to go and find new science and technology outside of GSK, to evaluate those opportunities and compare them to what GSK could do or what other companies could do, set up and manage potential collaborations between GSK and those companies, and eventually bring in new prototype medicines to GSK for full development and hopefully launch as medicines for patients in the future. What I'd like to highlight is, if you do chemistry, it can provide a springboard to doing other roles in industry and in business. The science training enables roles in business development, where you look for opportunities between different companies and businesses to work together, to work in business, to see how you can provide value in the manufacturing decisions. Also involved in where you would invest your money in new science, which new science is going to be worthwhile, which new science is going to deliver value in the future. And in the commercial analysis, have some understanding of how the future commercial opportunities may arise as science develops across the world. And in this group, we set up maybe 30 different collaborations around the world, in Japan, in Denmark, Germany, America, and in the UK. In 2018, I left GSK after 30 years, and I then decided to set up as an independent consultant. And I've been very fortunate. I've ended up working with a lot of different companies around the world, using my chemistry training, either directly, such as with a peptide-based company in China, and also working on business development, providing advice on psychedelic drugs for the potential treatment of depression for a company in the UK, looking at scientific opportunities and business development opportunities for a Japanese pharmaceutical company, but also providing reviews for venture capital investors in the US, and directly being involved in the medicinal chemistry for new potential anti-cancer drugs for a Scottish-based company. And also in the last 10 years, I've been heavily involved in providing advice for new drugs for hearing loss. I think all of this shows that chemistry can have a role in different arenas, in different therapeutic applications, but it can also be not only directly involved in the science of drug discovery, but also in the supporting activities that help make a successful drug discovery company. So, my advice, I think, chemistry should still be considered as a discipline, as something to go forward in your studies. Chemistry is still and will continue to be an essential enabling science. Chemistry will help discover new medicines. There are still huge unmet medical needs in this world, and lots of medicines still need to be discovered and launched. Chemistry will also, I think, have a huge role to play in the challenges of climate crisis, and also help to solve some of the sustainability problems that we face. For example, chemistry will have a major role in how we develop wind turbines that we can reuse or we can recycle, whereas currently there's significant challenges there. So chemistry will help solve the problem around batteries to improve battery recharging rates and stability and how they can sustain their charge over a long period of time. So lots of problems to solve, and chemistry will be involved in all of them. My advice to you, well, follow what interests you. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you science is easy. Science is hard. It's difficult. It's challenging. So it really needs to be an interest that you have, because that just makes it just so much more easy to go forward. However, be open to new opportunities where you know less about. I found great dissatisfaction in my career when I started to go and do things that looked interesting, but I really didn't know very much about, and to go through that learning phase again and to be able to evolve. You'll be surprised at what, even if you don't know very much, that you can contribute because of your scientific training. Embrace teamwork and diversity of thinking, absolutely essential. You know, no one person can know all the answers, and teams with diversity of thinking are absolutely key to success. Embrace artificial intelligence. It is here to help us. Scientists in the future will either be scientists without artificial intelligence and they won't be very successful, and there'll be scientists who will use artificial intelligence and they will have great success. Pay attention to the outliers. Always ask a question: why is that result different? What led to that being a different response to what I expected? Because there may be lies the answers to some of the problems you're trying to solve. I'd also say you don't have to follow the career path I did. I went to the university, yes, I did a degree, I did a PhD, I did research, but you can enter the world of science at all levels, and companies and businesses know that there are people out there who don't want to do a degree, who don't want to do a PhD, or would like to do a degree through an apprenticeship. So consider all of these options if you wish to go forward into chemistry and to do science. But above all, have some fun. And I certainly enjoyed my time working in GSK and working with all these other companies since then. Really like to thank you for your time today. I hope what I've provided you with gives you some insight to the types of roles and activities in industry, and I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you may have. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Rick. Does anybody have any questions at all? You can either come off mute and ask them, or you can type them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Obviously, if you don't have any questions, you are free to leave. It's very quiet. So what other job do you think you would have done if you hadn't have done chemistry?
That's a really good question. I must admit, back in the day, I was thinking about joining the armed forces. There's a sort of a bit of a family history there, so that was something that I was considering. But no, I think I'm not really entirely sure what else I would have done. So,
Are there other chemistry professionals within your family?
no, I was probably the first one to go down that path, and my family has generally been more either military or in the arts. So I was a bit of an outlier, so to speak. But that's good. That's good.
Because I think parents have a lot of influence over the kind of jobs. They can sometimes want their children to follow in their footsteps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a teacher at the school who, my chemistry teacher, was very engaging. You know, it's one of those sort of, you know, moments in your past where you think, you know, that teacher took an interest in me. I took a greater interest in the subject, and it kind of maybe snowballed a little bit from there. And I liked the practical aspects of chemistry. I was fortunate enough that, you know, we were able to do some practical chemistry at school, limited as it was, but that kind of stimulated my interest. And I think that's always been, it's the combination of the practical, setting up experiments, defining a hypothesis, setting out an experiment that you could undertake to try and deliver data that will either support your hypothesis or tell you your hypothesis is wrong, and then undertake that experiment, collect the data and review. So I that scientific method I really like, and I do particularly like practical work as well. So I think that's in the end what won me over into chemistry.
Well, that's great. There's nothing in chat, so I don't think that Hartsmere School has any questions. I'm going to pop a feedback form link in the chat, so if there are any questions after we've closed the session down, you can add those to that and then we can pass them on for you. There we go, so that's the feedback link there. So I'm going to stop